Hi, welcome back. Dr. Nohanachi joins us next. He's the managing partner, DPH Investments. He's a policy analyst, financial expert, and infrastructure economist. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. Nice
Well. What a time that we are in at this point in time. Yes, in that report, we did hear the president upon assumption of office at his inauguration saying interest rates categorically must come down. And quite encouraging, but I'm not sure it works that way economically, which you tell us about it. But we also do know that today there will be the screening of the CBN governorship nominees and their deputies. And so a lot of expectations already, lots of focus on them. What can they do to get the economy stable? Now, yes, you've gone through all of these things. What do you think?
We have experimented so many things in our model to see how we can get Nigeria working and thriving. Mostly on the CBN part of it, we have experienced several models, several patterns of bringing a CBN governor. We've had a case where we bring pure economists who have never been involved in the banking systems come and head CBN. People like the Soludo and co. They were never involved in banking sector. We've also experienced where we bring people from the commercial banks to head it. And we've also experienced where we bring people that are not close to the president. They're not close to the head of government to come and head CBN. Now we're having another experiment where we have someone who has been a personal friend, a colleague to the president, because they both work together in the Lagos State Executive Council and others. So, and this is another model that we want to experience. Whether is it going to break anything different? We'll wait to see the outcome. But in the new CBN governor, in my own opinion, there are certain things he just needs to pay attention to. In the last one, we had a complete divergence, a complete difference between the monetary policies and the fiscal policy. The finance minister and the CBN governor were not on the same page. So they were always fighting each other and having different instructions being issued, which there should have been in-house cleaning. And that cleaning is very, 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 very important. But now that we have, okay, the Minister for Finance, the CBN governor and the president,
coordinating minister of the economy.
We're in the same state executive council and work together as a team. So do we expect a very tight relationship? I hope such a relationship won't lead to abuse, though. But do we expect a very, very close relation? Yes, I will expect that. But how does work? So having said that, in terms of the teamwork, we also look at the key function of the CBN governor. Can we get the macroeconomics work? There are 4 indices, 4 elements of the macroeconomics, from exchange rate to inflation to GDPs. How can we make this take a very positive trajectory? So if he can put the house in order, then definitely we'll see a change.
Would you consider those as your KPIs for the CBN leadership?
Yes, I will consider that, because it's always a parameter of measuring any economy in the positive trend. So you can't go beyond that. How far can you take our interest rate? We know how the interest rate is jumping, and how do you develop your monetary policy in terms of banking supervisions? Are the bank going to just have their ways and all that? Will you be able to meet up your financial obligations in terms of cash deposits and all that? Are you going to resort back to ways and means borrowing when you cannot? So these are the key indicators that you can use. You are moving into a government where you can say, like today, the parallel market exchange rate is about 1,000. Okay, what are you going to do to change it? Where's the pressure coming? If you don't detect where the pressure is coming from.
Why do you think that's the case, though?
If you don't detect where the pressure, you keep doing things. People think the pressure comes from we're not earning enough. It may not be right. I beg to differ, though. Yes, it could be a contribution factor. People also think that the demands from the manufacturers is too much, so because we're not producing, yeah. But have we ever paid attention to the political demands of the dollars? It's on this. On the average, there's no governor that sits in Nigeria today that does not do up to $1 million purchase. Draw it down to prostate.
What's the frequency of that purchase?
Constant. Take a pattern. We have studied it. Take a pattern. At the end of every month, you see up to 5% jump in the exchange rate. Where's the pressure coming from?
Oh.
So if the people in government, let's be honest to ourselves, our corruption has been dollarized. So it's making that pressure so high. Even the corruption we have, I always say that we not only just have corruption, we have competitive corruption again. Competitive corruption. The people in government are competing among themselves. Who has the best house? Who has the biggest house? Who has the longest convoy? Whose wife got the best jewelry? That competition is mounting pressure.
Mr. Nachi, wow. I would beg to differ a little bit because
I listen to your opinion.
Let's play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Okay.
I mean, this new set of governors are thinking differently. This new set of ministers.
It's an assumption.
They are thinking, as I say, let's play a little bit of a devil's advocate here. They are thinking different. They've seen that things are horrible. They've seen that Nigeria is in a state of debt and needs to be pulled out of that debt situation. I mean, you heard the president when he went to Onga talk about the fact that Nigeria is back. Nigeria is ready. We're moving out of where we were into a good place. That's what he said. So, if that is what he said, and he's brought a team, as you said, the people that have worked with him and have seen how he moved Lagos out of where Lagos was to where Lagos is and is moving forward, and you think it's not workable, they can't make it? What are the things you think they should be looking at when they come in there if they want to move indeed in that line?
You know one thing, I believe in visions, but I also know that vision and fission is always very difficult. And all of us, we are human beings. You remember at the beginning of every year, January, we take some decision and say, this is our decision. Come back in 3 weeks' time. Why do we not keep to it?
Sometimes 3 weeks is too long.
Okay, you know why we don't keep to it? It's a natural habit. There are two things you always fight with in life, though. As a person, you fight with a habit. As a group, you fight with a culture. Now, this team you put together, whatever how good they are, they could work in Lagos because what? The culture is the same. But when you now take it out to a place that the culture is not the same, and it is a multi-dimensional culture that you're going to deal with, the cultural reactions is different. And that affects this vision and fusion. The level it will penetrate and dive deep into it is going to be totally different. But the point I'm driving, it is easier to say, yes, oh, these people are different. Let's get things right. They didn't fall from anything. Well, they live and grow up in this house society.
I think that if devil's advocacy, because if they're all thinking differently, we want to see it.
There are exceptions to it. There are exceptions to it, though. See, let's say this. Like I said, our corruption has been dollarized. It's a major factor. Quote me. I can defend it anywhere with data.
And you say it's usually at the end of the month, there's pressure on the dollar.
There's pressure on the dollar.
It always rises at the end of the month because of that pressure. What kind of data are you talking about?
I can defend it at the end with clear data.
Tell us about it.
What you need to pay attention to is, I'll give you a typical example. What period are we today? Today is 26. By 1st of this month,
thanks to Ayo,
around 5th of this month, I had needs to buy dollars. I did. From the open market. How much did I get it? $8.95. This is this. Where are we now, end of the month? And take it back. First week of last month. What was it? You draw the pattern. So if the government can mount pressure, let's check this.
Yeah, but how do you prove that that is what causes it to go up like that?
Okay. The proof is very simple. The proof is very simple. Take a statistics of every state and send your private investigations to the dollar market around that place. You will notice how dormant, inactive they are from 5th of that month to 22nd of that month. Less busy. But once you just cross that 20-something, you begin to see phone calls and how they move and other. But the point is, realistically, this pressure is getting high, and it is internally generated.
So do the banks have all these details?
It depends on when you're doing your investigative and you know what you're looking for. Are they interested in that? No. If they're not interested, what do you expect them to do? They're not.
But so if they should be the ones who should be chief interested in this matter of the economy, thereby helping the CBN and the economy.
We must rescue this country. We don't have any other country. And the only way we can rescue this country is honesty. And if we don't put honesty to it, people in government think they can build a perfect Nigeria of their own Nigeria. It's only one Nigeria. You can't build your own Nigeria.
Is it?
Even if you make your compound, have all the water supply, you're still going to drive it to the street.
If the dollar market, maybe the open markets like shut down, it's taken back into the banking halls for any time you want to buy forex. If it goes that way, would that make a difference?
No, it's not possible to go that way.
Not possible.
It's not possible. Because you cannot legitimize illegality. You cannot.
Is it realistic for people to say, look, if they address this political pressure on the dollar that you speak about, will it be realistic for citizens to expect that the exchange rate will come down? Perhaps drastically.
No, it's a gradual process. If you do that and do it drastically, you're still going to get the effect that it dropped drastically. Okay, let's put these things clearly. For hunger that just took place, you know the number of Nigerians that went for hunger? On the average, if we just put a round figure that everybody that left just had $10,000, we had over 4 planes or 5 that were fully packed of 500 people going for hunger, for social interactions and everything. And I will ask you, take 500 people in a plane and times it by 4, it is 2,000. And take that 2,000 and times it by $10,000 for each head. You know the amount we're talking about. It happened in 1 month. What do you expect it to happen? They were all political movements. Come on. Let's face reality.
Well, this defies some of those economic policies and strategies, but I guess we'll shed a little more light on this matter when we return in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. So now that you highlighted all of that, of course, it's going to jar a lot of minds wondering, if that's the case, does it just work like that? Okay, let's talk about solutions then. How do we address this? Because it can't just, if it were that easy, many would have thought, the former CBN governor might have seen this because they have all this data. So perhaps they would have just said, okay, well, if this is what's going on, we address this headlong. But it doesn't work like that. What would you say is the solution to this?
The foremost part of it is most of our financial institutions and our structures we have structures to address it. Like I mentioned, the government pressure coming from the system. That could easily be addressed. We have the NFIUs, who has that responsibility to track the movement of currencies within the country. And let NFIU create the forensic checks from state accounts, even contractors' account at the federal levels, against the authorized bureau de change accounts or process of the authorized bureau de change. We'll begin to track this. And once this tracking is done, the limitations begin to play on. Some of us has followed this clearly. And let me tell you one thing. And you need to get deep into it. Do detailed investigative analysis, and you get your facts. Some of the bureau de change that does these big transactions, you know what they do? They open up a different account in the name of a farm. You will just hear Chamberlain Farms. So you don't pay the money into the operational account. They pay it straight into the farm account.
But where do they get this dollar themselves?
Oh, the system is so bad. The system is so bad. So some of the things we can't say it on air. So we just wonder, like,
Can let me say a little bit of it?
I've said so much already. But what we need to do is there should be, from the CBN and NFIU side, they should run a forensics from all states and parastatals.
You know, so it's a one thing
take
to run,
it down.
It's one thing to run the forensics.
And constantly run that forensics, constantly. You know, haven't gotten this corruption dollarized is the biggest problem.
So the other side of it is you run the forensics. What do you do with the results?
You arrest the people. You
and
prosecute them.
Prosecute them.
Yes.
So that side
the fear of the next actions will deter it.
So we're back to where we started from, or where we almost always start from, consequence management. But let's see, let's go back a bit here. CBN monetary policy, Ministry of Finance fiscal policy. Okay. So in this case, CBN's one of the major responsibilities to protect the currency against the foreign currencies, right? What would you say should be the task or the immediate task of this new CBN team? They're being screened today at the Senate.
I will expect the Senate to probe more to them of their economic recovery plan. What is their take on, yes, they've been announced, so probably they've been meeting and having discussions, and I will want the Senate to let Nigeria hear from them. You have this responsibility. How do we control our inflation? It's your responsibility as CBN governor that the inflation should be under a manageable point. What is your tax? How do you control it? Do I still get assurance that I'm buying a loaf of bread 1,000 today, that tomorrow it will not be 1,002 or 1,005? So what is your plan to it? If you can control it, then let's move to the next question. How will you reduce this inflation? This is the questions I will expect the Senate should probe on them to give us answers. And they should also open their door that, okay, I may not know it all. Create a box. Create a box. It could be an email box, a physical box, and all that. Any Nigerians that feels they can, we don't need to be in government.
That's CBN now.
Yes. We don't even need to be in government. Anybody that has a solution can send you a solution and you take it.
But sorry, can we determine their capacity based on their CVs alone, saying they can fix the economy?
No. The CV is not enough. You look at them on the antecedents and where have you been, what you did, because if you look at it from that point, then you'll be able to know, yes, they can do that. Now, I was talking about being able to manage inflation. How will you manage this inflation? 1, stabilize it. 2, reduce it. And these 4 elements of the macroeconomy, how are you going to drive it down? The exchange rate, what are you going to do? So Nigerians need to hear from this team. We must see the commitment. We must see the passions that they're putting on the table.
Just before our colleague comes in, the conversation has always been that we're not producing anything, so we need to get our industries and manufacturing sector up and running. That way we have something to send out. That will ease the pressure on the naira and bring in more foreign exchange. But from what you're saying here now, even if the manufacturers are up and running, we may not even be able to get that kind of pressure off the naira.
Yes, I totally would say that statement without any reservations. But we also need to get that part. A good analysis, and which I have proposed before. I've sent it as a policy document to the government. We, Ministry of Finance, have what they created at a point in time in the name of import substitution. When you're doing import substitutions and you see it not working because you don't inject the resources, I'll take it down to you. Import substitution means I pick out one item and I focus on it to make sure the importation ceases. And it's only ceased because there's a manufacturing part out of it. And I'll give you an item they picked before and they've worked on it for several years and that substitution never happened. Furniture. Go to our common market today. You have 80% of imported furniture is being displayed in our showrooms.
But even though at that time they banned, they say no, you cannot bring in furniture.
Quote me. Visit the market. Boy. So that's where the calculated actions has to be. From the fiscal side of it, they should stiffen up on import substitution. And also, they should look at the waivers they grant from the physical point. Total waivers granted runs in trillions annually. And these people you grant these waivers, their tax responsibility don't run in trillions. There should be a balance.
Well, I think part of the KPI, not just for CBN now, even for governors, should be that, look, they have to get, you can't do 8 years as a governor, and you don't have two industries in their states, because the governors will argue they want to get the same salaries. They got 5 billion, 2 billion each, all of them at the same time. It doesn't matter the population of your state. So why shouldn't we all tell them, in that case, then you must have two functioning industries in your state? Hopefully, we'll see what happens. But let's go to Lagos. I just got questions for you.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, one of the questions that I want to bring to you, first of all, sir, is in 2021, the CBN disclosed that they had introduced no less than 37 intervention programs to boost the economy of the country. And of course, you might be able to identify a few of them. The question then is, first of all, how far can the CBN go in intervening in the economy? A few of them can be listed. The Anchor Borrowers program of the CBN, which a good number of people are criticizing, ways and means up to 22.7 trillion naira at some point, and MSME Development Fund, will come to that later. But how far really would you say the CBN can go, or would you say that in the past the CBN has overreached itself in trying to intervene in the economy?
Okay, with regard to your questions, CBN has that responsibility of intervention, but whether it could be done directly by CBN, that becomes the question. The last CBN governor we had decided, because it's coming from a commercial bank background, who decided to treat CBN like a commercial bank in terms of lending to even the man in the kitchen or the woman in the bakeries and all that. That is not responsibility of the CBN. I'll take example the Anchor Borrowing program that the CBN got itself involved. That shouldn't have been. We have Bank of Agriculture. It's an institution that's been established. In most of these intervention programs, I will advise that the CBN should use already established institutions. Don't get involved yourself, because you don't have the capacity for the recovery. And that is what has happened in the Anchor Borrowing program. People saw it as just a giveaway fund. And over 20% of it is not over 20% of the Anchor Borrowing that has been recovered. It's just staggered. So if you have used the real institutions that have been established to do this process, then they will identify the actual farmers. They will have the relationship. It is not just because you created a portal, anybody that upload document and you read the document, you say approve and you fund. Hell no, that won't work. So I will recommend to this new CBN, please, yes, it is your own obligation to do economic intervention, but when you do that, intervene with already established institutions. You cannot be intervening for small and medium-scale people and you don't bring SMEs to run it for you. Then you run into that problem. You cannot intervene for industrialization and you don't use Bank of Industry. You cannot intervene in agriculture-related and you don't use Bank of Agriculture. So that's because the last CBN governor was coming from a commercial bank who feels, I'm a lender, let me lend. You are the last resort of the lenders, not you lending directly. And that breached the rights and the privilege of CBN.
So does that then question for you the relationship between the CBN and the commercial banks? Because the MSME Development Fund, for instance, that you mentioned, 222 billion at some point. I don't know how that went. I mean, just as you have said, a good number of people will be asking questions. So if the CBN couldn't use the established bodies that we have, including the commercial banks, what kind of relationship do you think existed or should exist between the CBN and the commercial banks? What has gone wrong and what needs to be brought back, in your opinion?
If you want CBN interventions to pass through the commercial bank, it's a failure. Clearly, I will not subscribe to that. The commercial bank will treat it like a commercial transactions, and that's all that's been happening. And I'm not talking, when I say established institutions, I'm talking about development established institutions. If you use those ones, you get, the commercial bank will always treat it from the point of profit margin. And this always plays out. Before you know it, probably is a facility that has been orchestrated and say it's going to run for 5%. Just for example, when the commercial bank will begin to put all the charges and everything, it will get to 15% and it becomes another commercial transaction. But when you use an interventional institutions, they all exist in this country. I'm not saying they don't. They all exist. Why the avoidance? What we had in the last CBN is there's what we call market takeover, market hijack. The operator of the CBN were dancing to the tunes of the commercial bank. We need a CBN that is totally independent. Two forces were pulling last CBN, from presidency and from the commercial bank. So they were playing around this, not minding the economy, not minding the people, and doing the needful. So we need a CBN today that will take that responsibility and say, you know what, I'm here to serve the people. I'm here to rescue the economy. Okay. The economy we have is a mess up. So a rescue team is what we need.
Well, it leads to this question of micro, small, and medium enterprises. Going by the report that we had earlier, it definitely is something that calls for a lot of questions. But recently, I think it's just about 2 years ago, the Director General of SMEs, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, said between 2017 and 2021, 2 million micro, small, and medium enterprises died, leading to the loss of about 6 million jobs. Is there anything the CBN can do about that or facilitate for the SMEs or the micro MSME community so we don't have that kind of situation continue through whichever means, as you have said?
Yes, there's a lot that CBN can do as to intervene in that matter. SMEDAN is a very reputable agency we have. SMEDAN has offices almost in all over the state. They interact with almost all medium enterprises. And the way it is structured is that they even have specialized areas and they intervene. But now, the point is, does SMEDAN has enough fund to do that? I think one of the key rescue areas that this government can focus on, and this CBN can even look at for intervention, please, take CBN and work with it. Take Bank of Agriculture and work with it. Take Bank of Industry and work with it. This tripod, you should stand on it. And once you stand on this tripod, then you know you are likely to rescue the country. There are several programs that have been put in place. I'll give you a clear example. There's a program going on agro-processing zones. The last government started it. It was fully sponsored by African Development Bank, which they raised funds for that. And they are taking it up. As of today, the agro-processing zone from African Development Bank has over 10 billion. And they have called for invitation for states that are interested in it. Over 20 states has indicated interest in it. Now, if this goes through and CBN intervene on that, and this agro-processing zone are established, we will no longer have a waste of our agro-produce. That is a simple thing. There's some experiments you need to take so that you know the level of wastages that happens in our agro-productions. If for any reason, anybody listening to me and you're driving to Benue and past that, you see those women that are selling mangoes and fruit on the road, please stop by to visit them. Pretend that you want to go by the side and be a typical Nigerian, that you want to pee by the side. You will see the waste of yesterday where they dump it because they don't carry it back home. Whatever they couldn't sell, you just see them throw it away. Just go by the corner and you see that what they are displaying is minor to what they threw away yesterday. And this agro-processing, if CBN sits on it, will create jobs, will harness this wastage, and they become productive in such a way that the mini industry will begin to grow, and this is where the SMEs will multiply itself. And with agro-processing, there's some programs that the government need to pay attention to. Today, one of the problems we have in terms of food security and SME as related to food security is we don't have commercial farmers. We don't have commercial farmers. Yes. How many persons can you quote? Give me a farm that has 10,000 hectares of land in Nigeria for one particular produce.
Some farmer generals have their farms.
5,000, maybe 1,000 of...
Nothing, no 10,000.
No. When we talk about commercial farm...
Nothing on any of those anchor borrowers, rice and beans programs.
Please, save me that headache. So save me that headache. So there should be a dedicated, devoted intention to move into commercial farming. If we can get 20 states that takes up 10,000 hectares of land, mostly in northern Nigeria, and that alone will solve our problem.
All right, so I guess we'll see what happens at the end of the day. Will this set of CBN leadership nominees, will they have the magic wand? Well, not necessarily magic, but can they deliver? I guess it's what we will see moving forward. Thank you for coming on, Dr. Onohanachi, Managing Partner, DPH Investments, financial expert and policy analyst.